Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy, doing another tarot tag. I'm just having a lot of fun with these tarot tags this month. So this is April Arwen, a tarot tag started by Arwen Lynch. Thank you, Arwen, for the various tags you've been throwing out there in the recent past. As usual, I'm coming to this late. So 10 questions total. I'll try not to ramble as badly as I have on some of the other ones. What's your primary reason for pulling out your cards? The obvious thing is to do a reading. There are questions further along here that suggest there are other things that you do with your cards. As far as to me, there's, here I start, I'm rambling. I could just say to do a reading, but I will ramble a little bit more to try to get into go beyond the obvious. I'm sure she asked this question with more than the obvious in mind. For myself, and certainly I think when other people come to me, when we're at kind of an impasse, we're trying to make a decision, or there's some uncertainty in our lives, and we're trying to maybe, even if we don't want a solution, to at least flesh out the nature of the uncertainty. Not so much recently, but in the recent past, I would pull out my cards frequently, and I'll talk about this more when we get to favorite spreads, because I tend to suffer from idea proliferation, or a multitude of possibilities that I see. And so I do a yes and no spread. I know that that's not supposed to be kosher, but I need it because I do have such a proliferation and don't always have a realistic idea of what is good or what is possible. And so I will do this spread, which I'll talk about a little further on here. So I relied on that quite heavily there for a while. Recently, I've been exploring other uses for the Lenormand. So that's another reason I get out my cards, is kind of an exploratory, creating spreads, experimenting with different spread possibilities, different questions, that kind of thing. 2, do you use tarot in any way other than reading? No, I don't. I'm thinking, do I? I really don't. If you use tarot as part of your magical practice, how do you do so? How do you use it? What do you do? I don't have a magical practice as far as I'm concerned. I don't consider myself Wiccan. I'm one of those people who's kind of spiritual but not religious kind of thing. Yeah, so I guess I just don't have anything to go on there. 4, how do you explain to someone what tarot is? I haven't had to do that too much, though I am in an area where tarot is so deeply misunderstood that people are paranoid. They're freaked out that it has to do with devil worship and or some sort of dark forces. I'm in the American South. Extremely conventional religion here saturates the area, although there are people who haven't. A lot of times people try to break away from that, but they've grown up in it and are so steeped in it that something like tarot still makes them uncomfortable. So I did have a conversation not too long ago with a woman who she just noticed, I guess her mother had done tarot, but when her mother had become a religious person, she had some kind of religious conversion or something, and then she stopped reading the tarot. Much later in her life, I guess she actually made a living doing tarot. And so this person who we were jointly trying to rescue a dog in the neighborhood. And so this was a casual porch conversation. she had noticed because I had a sign on my car that I do card readings, and so she asked me about it, and somehow we got into, what is your thinking about tarot cards, and I said, I guess it was when she brought up the whole issue of her mother abandoning and it when she became religious, and I said, and this has developed through my experience. It isn't why I went to the tarot cards. I think I was just fascinated by possibilities, like I just was mentioning. um, but I do feel like they are a mode of receiving messages, and a rough form of receiving messages, not particularly clear, at least for me. Some of the cards it depends on the reading. Sometimes it feels very cut and dried. Sometimes it seems to be presenting a range of possibilities, any given card. Um, and sometimes the spread altogether just comes together and is saying one thing. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's talking about a variety of things. So I feel like what tarot is, and so I explained this to her, and I think it is the way I would explain it to somebody else. I really haven't. To me, it's a mode of receiving messages. Now, if you are seeking messages from some dark source, okay, well then you're probably receiving messages from some dark source. But that's not my intention when I go to the cards. And there was one encounter that I had with a person. Now, this was, like I said, I have the sign on my car. I use my car for all my personal purposes, which includes going to work. And we were looking to, my regular work is teaching adult education ESL classes, English as a second language classes. And we were looking to move those classes to a different location. And I had scouted out a location that happened to be a church. And so I was there checking out the church, and the pastor of the church he didn't say anything, but one of his members was there doing some work on the church, and felt compelled to come up to me after talking to this pastor with whom I had a perfectly great conversation and things moved forward and everything. But this guy felt he needed to come up to me and say, "So you do tarot cards?" And I said, "Yes, yes." And he said, "I used to do that." I said, "Oh, how cool." And he said, "But I don't do that anymore." He didn't say it quite like that, but he was saying that he doesn't do it anymore. For him, it was a dark thing. And I said, "Well, I don't know what you were using tarot for. That is not what I use tarot for. I don't do anything dark. I'm not interested in devil worship, anything like that." And he said, "You realize this is a church, that you are on church property." And my attitude toward that is, why, if you believe in a God, for goodness sake, why would you believe that a God would be the least bit intimidated or affronted by tarot cards? The reading of, to me, it is, does God get in a tizzy when you plan your vacation? You could treat that as looking into the future and planning for the future. Oh my gosh. So some people, his experience is that he was using them for a dark and negative purpose, and so he thinks that's the only reason they can be used. And in the end of that conversation, I just had to point to the pastor and said, "He does not have a problem with me being here." And that was the end of that's the end of the conversation. It's like, he is your spiritual leader. Go talk to him about how threatened he is by tarot card reading. Anyway, so there's my ramble on that. 5. What's your favorite spread to use and why? I don't think I have a favorite spread at this point. This is the time when I was going to mention when I was doing the yes-no spreads there for a while, and I was doing them very regularly. My yes-no is first card is giving me a positive negative vibe. You know, good idea, bad idea. The second card is why, because I go whole hog with the free will thing. I mean, you can tell me no. You can show me, depends on how invested I feel in it. You can show me the Ten of Swords. I still need a why, and I still need the ultimate outcome. And so those are the three cards, my kind of positive, negative, the why it's positive, negative, or negative, whatever that is, and then an outcome, a final outcome, if I decide to go forward regardless. Now, I will pause if in that final outcome I see the Ten of Swords. Well, then maybe I'm more likely to take it seriously there than at the beginning. So I did that a lot for a while. I've been playing with Lenormand Grand tableaus and different ways of using them. For a while there, I had what I called a chariot, the chariot being my tarot birth card. And so I had that where in the middle, this is your position, and then on either side, like the wheels, these are the things that are pushing you, or, how would you say, coming forward with you, like the wheels roll with you. And it can be things from the past or from the present. And then two things representing the sphinxes or horses are things that move you forward in whatever the situation is. And then the direction that you're heading is kind of the final. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. So I was doing that not so much for myself, but for others, particularly on the YouTube channel, and they were very popular. And I actually was not using them too much. I use them sometimes using a tarot deck, but I also use them with oracle decks very successfully. Otherwise, I don't know that I have a favorite spread. I like 9-card grids. I think they provide a lot of information. Yeah, no real favorite. Okay, 6. Name a famous living person who embodies the Hermit, the Star, or the Justice card. And I'm going to choose the Justice card and recent presidential candidate and current senator, Bernie Sanders. I'm still a Berner. I'm still a Bernie fan. I mean, he's like a justice trumpet. I guess well, no, I can't say he's not like the Judgment card in the sense of calling people forth, but I think his commitment to justice is total 100% constant. And it just, again, he's like a bullhorn for issues. They're just always coming out there. All right. 7. Have you ever read in a crowded, noisy, chaotic environment? No, and I wouldn't seek to do that. And I think, well, I can't say that 100%. I have considered reading at flea markets because that's just one of the few possibilities around here for reading or just getting known as a reader, but the times are just not congenial to me, to my health, to the way I work, the way I operate. And so would I? Yes. Do I really actively look for that? No, because again, that's not my personality. I'm not somebody who goes to a bar. That kind of environment would sort of irritate me anyway. So we'll see. We'll see. At my age, I think this is this is getting into, I'm getting into the hag zone. The hag zone to me is when it's like, it's got to work for me or forget it, you know, like no adaptation. And that's stating it too strongly. But as you get older, to me, that's, you're getting into the hag zone. It's got to work for me or it's not happening. 8. Do you do any sort of ritual before you read? Well, I don't know that I do any sort of ritual. I have set up my space here. I think having this space set out where I do readings is very grounding, and so I don't particularly have a grounding ritual. But that's something that I've thought more about recently. Sometimes I have a ritual when I shuffle, in terms of, especially if I'm shuffling for, well, just about any time. I'll just start shuffling to begin with, and then I think about how many times do I want to do the shuffle. If I'm shuffling for reversals, then I plan, you know, how I'm going, because I don't do riffle shuffling because I have tendonitis in my hands. It doesn't work. And so I end up turning, setting, you know, splitting them into 3, turning 1. Okay, and so I decide how many of those I'm going to do. And then if I'm reading for someone, the last bit of shuffling is their name. So I probably wouldn't do Jennifer, but I might do Jen Pearson. And so I would do J, then another E, N. Okay, so I do that many times, and then I would do a Jennif. Okay, so that I do, and then that finishes, to me, that finishes when I'm, that final spelling of the name, that's the end, and I pull from the top. And if I have, if it's for myself and it's some kind of issue, if it was a decision I was making about, say, the flea market, okay, like I was talking about possibly doing, I would again shuffle F, L, E, A, okay, and then I would do F, L, E, A, M, okay, and when to stop, I pull from the top, that kind of thing. Really my favorite way to pull is to smear the cards all around and then just pull, but my table really isn't big enough to do that very well, so. Let's see here, where am I? No, okay. 9, draw a card to answer this question. What's my next best step? Okay, I actually did this before before turning things on, because I do ramble so badly. So I figured, why waste time with you guys watching me shuffle? And so I decided beforehand, I thought, you know what, at first I was wanting to use I'm just full of indulgence when I do these little videos. So at first I pulled the Illuminati, Tarot Illuminati, and then I thought, oh, well, last time I used the Tarot Illuminati, do I want to just... And so at first I was thinking, no, I don't want to use that one again. And so I was looking at my others, and I thought, well, maybe I'll use the Mystical Cats. I haven't used them for a little bit. And then I said, why am I rejecting the tarot? So I went through this funny little process. Didn't take very long. I'm making it sound more dramatic than it was. In the end, I decided to use both decks. I said, why not? Why not use both decks? So as I was shuffling the Tarot Illuminati, I got a popper. And who would not accept the 10 of Cups as a popper, right? You see that, and it's like, yeah. And then I was shuffling the Mystical Cats Tarot, and it wasn't quite a popper, but it was doing this, as it was in the deck. If you imagine this is the deck, it started to go like this, and then it went like this, and then it went like this. It's like, okay, I'll take you. And it's the 9 of C in this deck, 9 of Cups. It's like, oh, how beautiful. So it's kind of one of the things I was curious about is whether they would spit out the same card, and they came close. So the Ten of Cups, again, going back to the question, what's my next best step? I think it is, the cups in this particular deck are a fantasy, okay? So the other suits in this deck are, like, one is Persian, I believe, one is Asian, and the other is Anglo-Saxon, using, I think, Elizabethan times. And what is going on outside? Okay, sorry. There's some sounds here that made me wonder what was happening out there. And so there's an added connotation, I think, to this card in this deck, which is, for me, go for your dreams. Okay? Embrace your dreams with that rainbow. Embrace that rainbow of cups here. And there's also the house. And so I think that's kind of keeping it close to home. You know, that just thinking about home and staying close to home is the feeling. Dream home, maybe not so much. Of course, this is not a Pentacles card. This is a Cups card. But I have been contemplating a move that would put me closer to family in general. But I'm not quite there yet. But anyway, deeply positive card. I'll have to steady on it a little bit more. Nine of Sea, of course, is the wish card. Very cute in this deck, where this kitty's dreaming of all these happy kitty experiences. The mate, the flying fish, a fish that's like a bird. What could be better? You know, a fountain of milk, little mice, just a bowl of shrimp. So, wish. So my next best step is also to kind of set my wishful intentions, to dream, okay? To allow, I think, to allow the happiness to come into my life, allow my wishes to be fulfilled, which is wonderful. All right, last one. How do you think you can personally improve your skills? Well, there's all kinds of ways to improve one's skills. Experimenting with getting different decks, I think, offers a lot. I keep scratching. I know what it is. My hair is tickling my chest. Different decks offer different perspectives on the different cards, and I find that valuable. Looking at the guidebooks, especially some of the really hefty guidebooks, like, look at this doozy. Extremely text-rich from Sol Invictus, you know? I mean, so just exploring those. Not too long ago, I set myself a task, which I almost immediately let drop, but it's still there in the back of my mind, which is creating a spread for every card in the tarot. So creating a spread that is asking questions that are related to that card. And I think I was just doing 5 card spreads. So that sort of thing. Of course, I have books that I still haven't read. Continuing, of course, to do readings for myself and for others. I think that's part of my attraction to the tarot, or one of the things that I love about card reading, is that it allows for so much learning and exploration. Invention is maybe too strong of a word, but to me it isn't even that there's no end to learning. It's that it invites, I feel like, it invites alternative perspectives. I remember a time kind of last summer and fall where the Seven of Swords was just representing in various readings so many different things. And I think that's one of the reasons why, although I use decks that are not as detailed as the Rider-Waite-Smith, but certainly one of the strong advantages of the Rider-Waite-Smith is all of the symbolism within the cards and the different ways that they can be interpreted. Again, as I said in the beginning, if this is an imperfect message system, then as many handholds as we have, at least if you're not psychic, now there are people who are psychic and they just look at the cards and they're really not hardly looking at the cards, they're receiving messages kind of regardless. But for those of us who are not psychics, as many different handholds or clues that are in those cards without becoming overwhelming or nonsensical, I think the better. And I think that there is a limit. Like I have a problem with the Voyager Tarot in the sense that I can't look at all of the different things that are in the collages, or it just becomes a hodgepodge and it doesn't make any sense to me. But it's still I still have it. It's still a worthwhile deck to use. I'm still enjoying using it. So again, it's a learning experience, and you know, practically every time you lay out a spread, it's a learning experience, because you have, especially like a 9-card spread, maybe a little less, a 3-card, but even 2 cards can result in a challenging juxtaposition that requires you to stretch your associations with those cards, or possibly stretching your association with the situation that's being asked. So as I said, I think that I think all of tarot practice, every reading is a learning experience, and that's, or an exploration. And to me, I love exploration. And because of health issues, I have not been able to engage in geographic sorts of exploration for a long time, and so one of the things I love about tarot is this exploratory aspect that is just everywhere, just very how would you I'm searching for a word I can't find. Ubiquitous is not the word. Ubiquitous in tarot, I don't know, it's everywhere in tarot. You don't have to look for it hardly. All right, and that's it. Thanks so much for stopping by and listening. I invite anybody to subscribe, though what I do most of the time on this channel is not this kind of, I've done them a little bit lately, I don't know if I will keep them up, but this kind of reflection on tarot and cards and all of that kind of stuff is something I don't usually do. Usually what I'm doing is general card readings based on the signs of the zodiac. So, you know, if you're into having that sort of thing pop up in your YouTube feed, then yes, subscribe. If you're not, just watch for the tags when I do answer them. All right, and thank you, Arwen Lynch. Thank you for the tag. It's been fun. And the rest of the tarot community here on YouTube is wonderful. I get a lot of inspiration from you guys. Alrighty, take care. Bye-bye.